Welcome to Spenny and the Nets, a podcast covering the Brooklyn Nets hosted by me, Spen Harris. And today we are joined, sometimes, not always, by my co-host and little brother, Nick. How goes it, man?
Greetings, human.
Is there anything you want to say to me on the podcast?
Happy birthday, I guess. It was like 4 days ago, so it's not really your birthday anymore, but welcome to Blake Griffin year.
Blake Griffin year, 32 years of age, and I have never seen the Brooklyn Nets or the New Jersey Nets win a championship.
Good luck.
All right, let's start off today's episode with a quick non-Nets segment called Ballin' Like It's March Madness. Nick, the brackets are basically set. We have 4 games that still need to be played to determine the final 4 in, but you know, who do you like in your NCAA bracket? Can you give me your final 4?
Yeah, I could actually just tell you it because I made it like this morning. I believe it's Florida, Duke, who are both ones. Here, tell me yours while I pull mine up.
So I have Auburn coming out of the South, facing off against St. John's coming out of the West. I have Duke coming out of the East, facing off against Tennessee, coming out of the Midwest. So my final 4 is St. John's, Auburn, Duke, Tennessee. I have Auburn and Duke playing in the championship, and I have my national champion as Auburn.
I actually don't have Duke. I have Auburn, Florida, Alabama upsetting Duke, and Tennessee. So I have 2 1s, 2 2s. I have Florida and Alabama meeting in the finals and Florida winning.
Okay. And that was us balling like it's March Madness, talking about our brackets.
And that's what we call bracket o'clock.
Let's get to the Nets. This first segment is, are the Nets bad enough again yet to be good? So 14 games left. The Nets are tied with Philadelphia for the 5th worst record in the league. And I think that they do have the tiebreaker over the 76ers. So we right now would be 5th in the lottery as it currently stands. I guess that's better than the 6th.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right. So 5th in the lottery is better than the 6th. 14 games left. Let's get to the end of the season. Like let's just do it. I'm done. Real quick. Let's go over these last 14 games, and I'll keep record. We'll do this quick. We'll start tonight. Nets and Celtics.
Celtics.
Okay, 0-1. Nets at Pacers.
Nets.
1-1. Nets at Pacers again.
Pacers.
1-2. Mavericks at Nets.
Mavericks.
Okay, 1-3. Raptors at Nets.
Nets.
2-3. Clippers at Nets.
Clippers.
2-4. Nets at Wizards.
Nets.
3-4. Nets at Mavericks.
Nets.
4-4. Timberwolves at Nets.
Wolves.
4-5. Raptors at Nets.
Raptors.
That's 4-6. Pelicans at Nets.
Nets. It would have been better if you listed 5 games that I just gave you their record.
5-6. Hawks at Nets.
Nets.
6-6. Nets at Timberwolves.
Wolves.
6-7. Knicks at Nets.
Knicks.
Okay, 6-8 is Knicks' prediction.
The Knicks are playing in Brooklyn the last game of the season?
April 13th at 1 p.m.
No, I'm going to be in Boston. Fuck, I would have loved to go to that game.
That would have been a fun game to go to. All right, 6-8. I kind of agree with you. Hopefully that locks us into a top 5 pick. Okay, next segment. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, I have a segment. I'm going to name every game next season, and you start giving me the records. All right.
This next segment is called Is He Worth It? Sources have discussed Cam Thomas could command a range between $20 and $22 million per season. Once he's a free agent, that's the kind of deal he's going to demand. Recently, Cam Thomas said he would love to re-sign in Brooklyn and stay with the team that drafted him. Nick, the question is, do we want the Nets to bring back Cam Thomas for $21 million a year and have him as a centerpiece for this franchise for the next 3 to 4 seasons?
I really think it depends on who we end up drafting. So I think it depends on the pick we get. My initial reaction would be yes, keep him, and then find a piece that could play complementary to him. So probably like a 3, 4, or 5. If you don't want to keep him, I think that opens the door a little bit to not having to strategize our draft pick. At the end of the day, I think teams tend to get the best player available. So I could see an issue where we still get the best player available and end up with 2 kind of scoring guards based on who's in the top 10, 12 available right now in the draft. But I would lean keep him pending. I think a lot of other people will leave. I think a lot of other things will get shifted around. And maybe we could start rebuilding with him as our kind of young gun.
This might be a hot take. I don't think, as gifted as Cam Thomas is a scorer, and he has been the best scorer to play for the Brooklyn Nets since Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden have left, no one has been a better scorer than Cam Thomas. But I don't think that I view him as a building block for this Nets team. I think they have to get a point guard of the future. We have not had a true point guard, outside of James Harden. Yes, D'Angelo Russell's been here twice. He was an all-star in his first stint here, but let's call it what it is. D'Angelo Russell's usually the 15th to 30th best point guard in this league. I want a player that has a Ja Morant ceiling, Ja Morant, Luka Doncic, one of these top point guards in the league. Cade Cunningham. I want that type of player as the Nets point guard. And I don't think that Cam Thomas will jive with a player of that caliber. So yeah, I don't think D'Lo's the future. I just don't believe in Cam Thomas. He's undersized as a 2.
Cam Thomas on a great team could win 6th man of the year. Is that a hot take?
No, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I think he's a much better version.
He's like a Lou Will.
He's a better version of Lou Williams. He is. And he's a microwave. Like, some of the shots that Cam Thomas hits are incredible. And a lot of people can't hit those shots. Paulo Bengzon writes,
Dragons, he's radioactive.
Paulo Bengzon writes, is there a reason you didn't include Jalen Brunson in the 3-point guards you named? I should have included Jalen Brunson. I don't think that, as Nick gives a dismissive look, a questionable look.
I prefer Paolo Banchero personally.
Oh, no, but in my opinion, as great as Cam Thomas is, you need to get bigger at the backcourt. You need, a generational point guard, in my opinion, and then a really good shooting guard that can defend, that can play off the ball. I just don't know if I view Cam Thomas as that guy for the Nets in the next few seasons, especially if you have to pay him a lot of money.
Understood. Yeah, I can go either way. I like Cam Thomas. I would understand. I do get excited about a complete rebuild, get rid of Cam, really start from the ground up. It's exciting to me too. So I'm not emotionally attached to Cam Thomas. I appreciate what he's done for the organization. Kind of does like a Spencer Dinwiddie during COVID thing where he just like makes the team a little more fun. But is that what's going to make the team more successful? Probably not.
You're not emotionally attached to him. Are you physically attached to him?
We're not Siamese twins. No.
Okay. All right. All right. So this next segment is called Shout Out To, and there are 3 shout outs that I'd like to give. For starters, I want to give Maxwell Lewis a shout out. 2 really good games from Lewis, 10 points against the Hawks on 4 of 7 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, and then 15 points against the Celtics, 6 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3. He is just 22 years old. He was the 40th pick in the 2023 draft. And he's a guy, like I said last episode about Zaire Williams, he's a guy that the Nets should hold on to. And he's a guy who you got him for the cheap right now, right? He came over in that Los Angeles trade with D'Angelo Russell for Dorian Finney-Smith. He gets hurt right away. Nets fans don't get to see him for the majority of this year, but he's came back and he's looked like a player with some serious promise, Nick. So shout out to Maxwell Lewis for taking advantage of those opportunities and balling.
Yeah, Pepperdine University, the Pepperdine Waves. You don't see a lot of great players out of Pepperdine, out of the West Coast. A Jesuit school, I believe. Good friend of mine went there. Nice to see Maxwell Lewis step up. Nice to see these younger guys play. Again, they're getting minutes on a team they most likely would not have under other circumstances. But It is cool. I will say, let's not get inflated with these performances. A guy like Maxwell Lewis is not the future, so be excited about him for a couple days, wax on, wax off, and then move on.
Yeah, I do think he's part of the future. I'm not saying he's a centerpiece, but young guy, obviously there was something Mark saw in him. That's why he made the trade. And look, he did this against the Celtics. Really good defensive team. He was on fire. They couldn't stop him. And this is a Nets team, Nick, that's playing guys, and I don't want to be mean here, but that's playing guys like Royce Beekman. Royce Beekman, I texted you this yesterday while I was watching the Hawks game. He is one of the worst Nets to ever put on a Brooklyn Nets jersey. He just is. He's the backup point guard when guys are hurt. Trendon Watford hasn't, he's been hurt a little bit. So Beekman's been getting some play. He does nothing. He came over in the Golden State trade. When we traded away Schroeder, he was the piece we got back. I'm not a fan of his game. Defensively, he's an okay point guard, but offensively, he gives you nothing. So
I'm just saying, you're getting excited about Maxwell Lewis. We were excited about Tyrese Martin 2 months ago when he dropped like 31.
I'm still excited about Tyrese Martin.
Yeah, we're just like 9 points a game on a bad team. Like, I'm just saying, keep your expectations low. I understand there's a podcast. We're a Nets podcast. You're supposed to be excited about the Nets. In a trying time right now, you could be cautiously optimistic, but we can't be sitting here yanking it to Maxwell Lewis.
All right, and with that, we're going to get to my second shout-out. Boki Nakbar, Boston Nakbar. The Brooklyn Nets recently posted his top moments as a Net, and he was recently interviewed by Brooklyn where he spoke about playing with Jason Kidd, Vince Carter, and just what it was like playing for the Nets in that time period, I believe from 06 to 08. Absolutely love the Brooklyn Nets showing our guy Boki Nakbar some love. And for those who don't know, Boston Nakbar is a former guest of the show and one of our favorite role-playing swingmen on the Nets to ever do it. Doesn't get the praise he deserves, but it's nice to see the Brooklyn Nets showing him some love in 2025.
You will hear some disgusting, raunchy, blasphemous poison come out of my mouth. You'll never hear a negative word about Boki Nakbar. Fantastic basketball player for the New Jersey Nets. Even more fantastic of a person. Was an honor to speak to him. So love to see him get his flowers. Would love to have him back at some point. Boki, I know you're listening. We miss you, bro. Hope that jump shot's still good. I know your kid's been balling lately. So let's chat soon. All right, brother?
All right. And then this third shout out. This one's interesting. Shout out to former Net Brian Scalabrine. So for those who are on TikTok and Instagram and all the socials and you follow,
the cage is down the block from the theater.
Well, yeah, let me tell the story first so the listeners know what I'm talking about, and then you could talk about the cage. So for those who are on social media, you might be familiar with a man named George Messiah, who basically is this 46-year-old man. He's got a beard and he challenges, people challenge him to one-on-one, and he tends to beat up on a lot of younger, more athletic-looking people. Now, recently, someone asked George Messiah in a video if there's an NBA player he thinks he can beat one-on-one, and his response was Brian Scalabrine. Well, the White Mamba heard this, and he showed up to the cage Nick was referring to play George Messiah. Nick, where is this cage?
The cage is a basketball court on West 4th. I believe West 4th and 6th, if I'm correct, in Manhattan. Pat Beverly was there a few months ago balling. The run is always super competitive, and it's a block away from a theater called the Players Theater, where a fantastic sketch comedy group called I Mostly Blame Myself performs a monthly SNL-style sketch comedy show. But the cage, if you have not seen it, pass by. It's right by Washington Square Park. It's a great, and I'm pretty sure as well, SNL shot the sketch there with Jimmy Fallon and Mikey Day, where they're in the background of that dramatic scene with Pete Davidson and Kenan Thompson, and they're like terrible at basketball. You know what I'm talking about? Pass the rock, pass the rock. So the cage is a very iconic New York City pickup basketball court.
All right. So to finish the story, Scalabrine showed up to the cage to play George Messiah one-on-one. He beat him 11-0. George Messiah got so mad, he threw the ball out of the cage and complained that Scalabrine was fouling him when the guy's overall shtick is kind of being super aggressive and handsy with whoever he plays. Long live Brian Scalabrine. Long live the legend of the White Mamba. I'll tell you this, Nick. Scalabrine did not have to do that. Like, he didn't have to show up there, put his reputation on the line, and face this guy. Not only did he do it, he beats him 11-0, and he pretty much grabbed the mic at some point, and he's like, dude, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but he pretty much said, you're going to foul me all game. You're going to put your hands on me. I'm going to go right back at you. I'm big. He had his famous line. He said, I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me. That is an awesome line. Shout out to Brian Scalabrine, former New Jersey Net.
I didn't realize this. He says this in the TikTok video he made. The guy one of the guys who made a TikTok video about it said Scalabrine had the worst rating in NBA 2K, like 08 or something. I didn't realize that. I knew Scalabrine was a little bit of a laughable player. He didn't get a lot of minutes. He was kind of a slower.
I think it might have been the hair. He had red hair. Not a lot of players had red hair.
On a dad bod looking guy. But I didn't realize to the extent that he was actually the lowest rated NBA player in 2K. But just goes to show he is still a effing professional basketball player. He is still what? What do you have? 15 guys on each team, 30 teams. One of the top 200 players in the world, if I'm including some of the best international players. He is still one of the best humans at basketball.
And this isn't the first time he's done this. Years ago, he held a tournament for anybody who wanted to play him one-on-one. I think it was in Massachusetts, could play him, and he beat the crap out of a bunch of, you know, pretty decent 20 and 30-year-olds.
30 times 15 is 450. So let's say he's top 500 in the world at the time. Not now.
All right. Got it. So the 3 shout-outs, Maxwell Lewis for his play, Boki Nakbar for getting some love from the Nets, and Brian Scalabrine for beating George Messiah 11-0. Nick, let's get into these last 4 Nets games. Are you ready?
Ready.
We are going to start with the Nets win against the Hawks, 122-114. Cameron Johnson, 28 points, 7 assists. The Hawks had the Nets in this game. Like they had us at halftime. They were up 6, and then they just didn't show up in the second half. Cam Johnson, you can tell, wanted to get going in this game. So for those who like to bet for the rest of the year, if Cam Johnson is going to play, bet on Cam Johnson's overs up to 20 points while you have decent odds. Here's why. When Cam Thomas came back, Cam Johnson's numbers dipped because Cam Thomas scores a lot. Cam Thomas is out for the rest of the year. So Cam Johnson, when he's in and there's no Cam Thomas and D'Angelo Russell hasn't been super aggressive offensively, Cam Johnson is going to be getting 20 to 25 a night easily. He had 28 in this one. 22 points for Keon Johnson, 8 rebounds in 29 minutes. He's been a really nice player for the Nets. Our guy Tyrese Martin with 16 points, 6 rebounds. Jalen Wilson with 13 points. Trendon Watford with 13 points. And as I mentioned, Maxwell Lewis with 10. So 6 Nets in double figures. We outscored Atlanta 31-22 in the fourth. Just another day at the office for the Brooklyn Nets. You need them to lose and they win.
The Hawks are pretty bad. I mean, they got rid of Hunter, they got rid of Murray in the last 2 years, and they just look bad. And like, if we're going to beat any team in the East, I'm still surprised the Hawks have over 30 wins. And also for those who are paying attention, the Nets over-under on wins this season was 19.5. They're at 23. They've already far surpassed their expectations. So yes, we're still winning and pushing ourselves further back from a great pick, but the Hawks are a team we honestly, I think at this point, roster are better than.
I had a bet in this game. Well, I did bet the over on Cam Johnson points at 20, so shout out to me for hitting that. But I had the Nets plus 4.5 in the first half, and the Nets had the ball. They were up 3 points with 15 seconds left in the second quarter. And I go, I covered this bet. They were going to hold it for one shot. They turn the ball over. Trae Young gets a steal and hits a 3, and the Hawks go up 6 at half. I lost the bet on a fucking turnover.
That's a
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks had 9 guys playing. Karis LeVert was their midseason acquisition. He wasn't in. No Clint Capella. I mean, Okongwu, 21 points, 15 boards. Nice game for him. Trae Young had 28 and 12, but and Dyson Daniels, I mean, defensively, he's a monster. He gets so many steals. They fell apart in the fourth. 22 points. You're just not going to win that way. And every time we need the Nets to lose, they win. It is what it is. But listen, I'm not complaining. Their only win in the last 4 games let's move on. We move on. We go all the way back to March 11th, Tuesday, where the Nets played the Cavaliers. They played them tough, Nick. The Nets were actually beating the Cavaliers after 3 quarters, played them really strong. No Donovan Mitchell in this one for the Cavaliers, but they did have Darius Garland. He finished with 30 points, 8 assists. Jared Allen had 23 and 13 for the Cavs. And then Evan Mobley had 21. Nets were outscored 31-18 by the Cavs in the fourth quarter and just didn't have enough to hold on against this ridiculous Cavaliers team.
You're looking at a 55-10 record. This Cavaliers team has all the confidence, and they've somehow given all the confidence to their younger players and their role players. So to even stay in a single digit, even without Mitchell, I mean, a big feat against a Cavs team that right now is one of the favorites to win a championship. So can't ask for much more than that.
Cam Thomas was the high man for Brooklyn with 27 on 10 of 22 from the field. Cam Johnson had 17 points on 6 of 10 from shooting. And that, by the way, proves my point. When Cam Thomas is in there, he's going to get a lot more looks, and Cam Johnson's volume is going to go way down. So FYI for those bettors out there. Noah Clowney had 12 off the bench in this one, and Zaire Williams with 14 points as well. Nick, we move on to Thursday, March 13th. Nets and Bulls. The Nets lose to Chicago 116-110. Were outscored 34-18 in the fourth. Kobe White had a game in this one for Chicago, 31 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists from Kobe White. And then Trey Jones added 18 for Chicago. Tough game for the Nets. Kind of similar to Cleveland. Cam Thomas had 24 on a bad shooting night, 8 of 23 from the field. Cam Johnson had 16 points, and Nick Claxton finished with 18 points and 14 rebounds. Tyrese Martin had 19 off the bench, but just not enough in that fourth, Nick. Same problem against Cleveland they had against Chicago.
Yeah, we blow a shit ton of games in the fourth. That's just a known fact with this Nets organization. I don't like the Bulls. I'm very out on the Bulls. That's a bad team. I was like one leg away from hitting an 8-game parlay the other night. I took all favorites, and then I took the Bulls beating I think it was the Clippers or the T-Wolves? Let me see here. And literally the Bulls were up the entire first half. I think went up at like 10 at some point, and they blew it. And that was like plus 3,000 bet. Who was it? It was the Bulls, Rockets. They outscored the Rockets 29-22 in the first quarter. They were up 5 at half, started the third quarter hot, and then they got effing destroyed in the third and the fourth by the Rockets to come back and win by 3. So I'm out on the Bulls. I wish we beat them.
All right. By the way, I really like Matas Buzelis. I think he's going to be a good player. He only had 6 points in this one, but really like his game. All right. And then we move on to the Celtics Nets. That game was played on Saturday, and the Nets lost by 2 points. Very interesting game. I mean, a Celtics team that pretty much had everybody minus minus Derek White. Brooklyn
Horford.
held tough with that, man. What do you say?
And Horford.
Oh, and no Horford as well. Porzingis had 24. He was unstoppable for Boston in this one. Tatum had 20, and Pritchard had 22 off the bench. But the Nets were willing to fight till the very end. Cam Johnson had 23 points, 10 rebounds. Day'Ron Sharpe, who got the start with Nick Claxton out, he had 9 points, 16 rebounds, and 21 points for Keon Johnson. He is also someone I would look to bet the over on points-wise if it's around 10 to 15. He's been playing very good basketball as of late, and he has a very green light to shoot the ball on this team. Jalen Wilson and Maxwell Lewis both chipped in 15 off the bench, and Zaire Williams finished with 14 points as well. Brooklyn outscored.
Any given Sunday, bro. We could play with the best of them.
Actually, this game was on Saturday. But, Brooklyn outscored Boston 32-29 in the fourth. And, there's some tendencies that you see from a Jordi Fernandez coached team in terms of discipline, in terms of not giving up, in terms of defensively making life tough as they can on the Celtics, that with the right personnel, you get really excited for what he can do in Brooklyn in the future. Like if you put in a Cooper Flag, or if you put in, some of these young guys that the Nets are looking at, this team can be a very legitimate or a tough out in the East pretty soon.
How soon?
Just my thoughts. How soon? 2 years.
I hope you're
not
right,
next year, but I think the following season they can start to sniff playoffs. All right, Nick. So it's 4:45 on Tuesday. The Nets will be playing Boston tonight in Boston. The Nets are a 13.5-point underdog. If you're listening to this on Tuesday before the game, I would say bet the Nets. The Nets played Boston pretty tight a few days ago at home. I think they're going to cover the 13.5, especially with Jaylen Brown not playing tonight.
I don't think they're going to cover. I think they money line Nets. They're going to win the game. You heard it here first. Plus 600 parlayed with over 212.5. You're looking at 10 to win $120.
Yeah, don't listen to Nick. He's not a very good gambler, but I like that.
That's not true.
I like the Nets 13.5 tonight. If you're listening tomorrow, the game already ended. Apologize for wasting the last 45 seconds of your time. All right. We're going to end the pod. Before we do, I just wanted to bring something up. Have you been paying attention to the Paul George stuff?
No.
So 2 weeks ago, Paul George said he was going to stop podcasting to focus on helping the 76ers get to a championship or compete for a championship. Yeah, recently it was announced that Paul George is out for the rest of the season due to injury.
No way.
Yep. So do we think that he goes back to podcasting now that he's out for the rest of the year? Okay, that was my question. All right. That just about does it for this week's episode of Spenny and the Nets, episode 218. Nick, do you have any final words for the listeners?
Stay blessed.
All right, you heard it here first. And happy birthday to me. All right, it's my Blake Griffin year. And he did play for the Nets.
He did. We love you, Blakey.